I jumped on the dugout. We just had everyone was really angry. We didn't know what was happening. So I jumped on the dugout. I said, this has got to stop. We, the fans, have got to find out what is going on in this club. We knew by 94, 95 that things were really bad. And then it was like an illness, a diagnosis of an illness. We thought that it was bad, but we never ever knew how bad it was going to get. In exactly the same way that when I wrote those words in 1997 in my poem Goldstone Ghosts, one day when we're storming back, a bunch of fans, happy fans without a care, we look back on our darkest hour and raise our glasses high and say with satisfaction we were there. When I wrote that, I knew that we were going to come back. I had no doubt at all that we would come back from this, but I had no idea how good it was going to be.
Attila the Stockbroker or John, which is it? And tell us about your alter ego.
Well, I mean, Attila the Stockbroker is my stage name, and John Baine's my real name, and I'm really the same on stage and off. So I tend to be John if when there's more than one John, and Attila if there's more than one John. That's the general kind of, because in our generation there are quite a lot of Johns.
That clears it up.
The first thing you will find out about me is that I just talk constantly. You might have to cut me off. It's not an alter ego particularly. It's just who I am. It's if you like, I have had the wonderful privilege of earning my living for 45 years doing something I would do as a hobby if I'd never been able to earn a living out of it. Now you think about that, it's just like a footballer. You are earning your living doing something that you love. I remember, I haven't bumped into that many footballers, even though I was PA announcer and obviously for 14 years. When I do, I always have a chat, and I remember having a wonderful chat with Craig McHale-Smith when he first arrived at the club. Just bumped into him, said welcome, and I said, I know where you've come from, Craig. You were in the non-league, you started right at the bottom, you weren't in any academies or anything, and I know you're now living the dream, and I'd just like to say how much I relate to that, because I've managed to earn my living doing what I love. I'm not famous or anything, but I have a good following, and I just love being able to do that. So I get up on stage like you go on the pitch, and I'm doing something that I would do if it was like the equivalent of a Sunday afternoon thing. I mean, that's me. And as I say, I've done it. I've done this now for 45 years. I've performed in about 26 countries, toured Australia 4 times, New Zealand 3 times, Canada 6 times, the States 4 times, done hundreds of gigs in mainland Europe. I speak French and German. I do a bit of performance in other languages, and obviously stacks all over the UK. And the Albion has always been an absolute intrinsic part of that. I've written poems about the Albion all my life, really. The first one that I had published and that I was really proud of was the Anne Smith Must Score one for the 1983 Cup final. Ever since then, obviously, I was the poet in residence for a while during the war years with Dick Knight, and I've always thought of myself as a kind of unofficial poet in residence anyway. The stuff's all over the
You
North
didn't
Stand.
actually lose that job, John, did you? You just, what happened to the label? Because I remember it very well.
What happened to the label was, obviously, we started Beezer, we got rid of Archer, we went to Gillingham. I was doing the PA with Paul Samra. I was doing it on my own first of all. Got Paul Samra in. Oh, this is something that'd be quite funny. I don't know whether you can get this one in. The reason I asked Paul Samra to come and join me doing the PA because I was doing it at Gillingham. I was going to the Roseneath beforehand, had about 4 or 5 pints, and then doing the PA. Obviously nobody cared. So the reason I asked Paul to come in was obviously calls of nature were necessary, and I was really drunk as well sometimes. So that's I said, Paul, will you come and help me do the PA? Well, that is literally what happened. I've never said that to anyone apart from Dick Knight knows, but nobody else does.
Wow. Everyone knows now.
I think we should have an experiment. Our current stadium announcer should be made to drink 5 pints and then try to announce Brighton against Liverpool or Brighton against Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, the funniest one, I'm sure Kerry won't mind me saying this, the funniest memory I have, and I had a few, where we lost 4-0 at home to Darlington, and Kerry hadn't had a good game. No one had a good game, obviously, and obviously there had to be a man of the match. It was Kerry Mayo, and I just said, today's man of the match is Kerry Mayo, and everybody started laughing because it was just such a funny thing because we'd just been it just had been such a terrible day.
So but yeah, sort of an anti-announcer.
Talk
really.
About 2 clubs going in different directions. By the way.
Oh yeah, I know. It was the Gillingham experience was utterly surreal. There is a piece in that. Maybe I should. I think I would love to read the piece from the Gillingham.
Well, while you're looking, we'll just remind people that the Albion did play at Priestfield Stadium in Gillingham for a while. It took a few times. It took 2.5 hours to get there, probably. And
2.5 hours?
Oh, it was murder because it was
Were
all
you driving?
it was all motorways and.
Oh, what a nightmare to all motorway.
It was absolutely ridiculous.
Is that not good?
Sorry, what I mean is there's a lot of motorways. It was about 4, I think.
Okay, here we go. This is me doing the PA at Gillingham. The tunes I've been playing pre-match have been going down well with the Albion fans I talked to, and the whole idea of playing music that was as energetic as possible to try and create some sort of atmosphere in a home ground 70 miles away was a big hit with Dick Knight and the club. It was an early kick-off on Boxing Day. We were bumping around second from bottom of the whole Football League, with the team perhaps even worse than the one we'd had the previous season. We'd obviously had to set off really early to get to Gillingham in time for the game, and everyone was a bit bleary-eyed. So for the first time, I decided to play Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols. It had been on for about a minute when a policeman burst into the box. Take that off, now! Why? I asked, but I could see that he was really angry, so I did, and I put the Clash on instead. You can't play that record at a football match, it's banned, it's on the list. What list? I asked. No one has ever told me there was a list of records I couldn't play. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? He shouted, it's obvious. I stood there, the Clash playing the background, perplexed. It evidently wasn't obvious to me. The fact that he needed to explain further made him even more angry. It incites violence in the crowd. I thought for a few seconds. Well, officer, I said, I bought 2 copies of Anarchy in the UK in the black sleeve on EMI Records on the day that it came out in 1976. I've played it and heard it many, many times since, and not once has doing so given me violent thoughts of any kind whatsoever. I've also been to all 92 Football League grounds, and every time I've heard In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, I've had to restrain myself from committing serious acts of criminal damage. He didn't get the joke. And a couple of days later, Brighton Hove Albion Football Club received a formal letter from Kent Police banning me from doing the PA at Gillingham any longer. Dick Knight phoned me up. I'm not having that, John. He spoke to them and the ban was rescinded on condition that I didn't play Anarchy in the UK again. So I didn't. I did play Smash It Up by the Damned and I Fought the Law and White Riot by the Clash in the next couple of weeks, though. No policemen appeared in the box. Obviously, those 3 weren't on the list.
John was reading brilliantly there from Attila the Stockbroker, A Lifetime of Football Writing, Poems, Songs and Stories, which is out now.
Can I just explain how it came about briefly?
Please do.
Now, obviously, I've done my collected works 40 years. It's, let's say, 45 years I've been Attila now. And I was thinking to myself, for quite a while, I really should do a collected football poetry, because I've done so many over the years, not just poems, but songs and stories. Obviously, that was a story. And then about 6 months ago, I had an email from my mate Jukka in Tampere in Finland. And I knew, I've toured there a few times, and Tampere United, formerly FC Tampere, were a big club by Finnish standards who played in Europe. Normally got to about the second qualifying round of the Champions League or whatever, and they've been closed down because the people that ran it had been convicted of money laundering. So the club was shut. They don't mess around in Finland. They just shut the club, and the fans started their own club, and they were inspired to do that. By our struggles at Brighton. So they asked me if they could publish a book of my football poems. And I thought this is absolutely serendipitous, because I was thinking about the same thing myself. And so I said to Jukka, OK, you do it. We'll launch it in Finland. And then, obviously, we'll launch it in the UK. So they launched it in July because, for obvious reasons, the season in Finland goes from March until October, because otherwise every single game would be postponed due to a frozen pitch. So they did that on the big screen. I wasn't there because I was actually at the Edinburgh Fringe. So they launched it then. And we're doing it now. And I wrote the opening poem is a poem that I wrote for them, because they kept their club alive.
That's one that jumped out at me.
Yeah, they kept their club alive. It's a fan-owned club. So I wrote this dedicated to them, and it's called Don't Tamper with Tampere. It was nice that they were called that, because it made an easy pun. Football is our culture. It belongs to us, the fans. But sadly, there are profiteers who have quite different plans. They just care about money, they don't love the game at all, and they will scheme and plunder till the club goes to the wall. We rose and fought at Brighton, and you folks stood up too. We saved ours from oblivion, you started yours anew. And now you've built a special bond no businessman should sever. So don't tamper with Tampere, keep it fan-owned forever.
Yeah, well, there'll be people listening to this who just don't remember what you call the war years. They were too young,
Of course.
Or a lot of people might have forgotten large parts of it, but Just take us back to when you started the Independent Supporters Association, because at that point you were gearing up to save the club from being ram-raided and destroyed, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'll take you back even further than that. Obviously, in the late 80s, early 90s, I can't exactly remember when, Harty started Goals High. So, and that was when things
That's
were...
Ian Hart, yeah.
Ian Hart started Goals High. I've forgotten which game it was. I always thought it was either Oxford or Southend. I jumped on the dugout. We just had everyone was really angry. We didn't know what was happening. So I jumped on the dugout. I said, this has got to stop. We, the fans, have got to find out what is going on in this club. And Harty said, well done, John. And my mate Mike Williams, of course, at the time was there too. And a guy called Peter Kennard, who was one of Harty's mates. He's not around much anymore.
No.
So we sort of unofficially said, this is Brighton Independent Supporters Association. It never was official. It never had it was always a kind of anarcho-syndicalist collective. It never had a sort of anything boring like a chairman or a secretary or minutes or anything like nonsense like that. So we basically got hold of Barry Lloyd and said we want a meeting. So we had the meeting, and he was, he obviously cared about the club, and he tried to explain everything, and it was obvious A, that he cared about the club, and B, there were things going on that even though he was, I think at the time he was something like chairman and CEO or whatever. It was all, I can't remember exactly, but it was all around Barry Lloyd. But obviously he was the figurehead of something much bigger that was going on behind him, and we weren't sure what it was. But at that point, we all said to ourselves, we're going to find out. And then, of course, Paul Samra came in a bit later on again. We found out about the Articles of Association being changed, and that's when we really, obviously, but everything else, are trying to sort of, if you like, concentrate it into a minute or so. We knew by 94, 95 that things were really bad, and then it was like an illness, a diagnosis of an illness. We thought that it was bad, but we never ever knew how bad it was going to get. In exactly the same way that when I wrote those words in 1997 in my poem Goldstone Ghosts, one day when we're storming back, a bunch of fans, happy fans without care, will look back on our darkest hour and raise our glasses high and say with satisfaction we were there. When I wrote that, I knew that we were going to come back. I had no doubt at all that we would come back from this, but I had no idea how good it was going to be. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you to everybody, present company, for the part you all played in doing that, because what we did off the pitch, you did on it, and that was just absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, we should just put a bit of detail on that. The Articles of Association were changed so the Goldstone ground could be sold. That was basically it, wasn't it? And then, so at that point, you start to see the clubs being
a caveat, which meant that in the Articles Association, the ground could not be sold for private profit. And Archer took that out, and that's when we knew.
Yeah,
that's why we
tried to dismantle it. Did you feel lost after that battle was won?
I wasn't lost at all, because I'm doing 100 in the middle of all of this. I'm also doing 100 gigs a year. I've got a family sort out. I got huge amounts of other activities. So my life was just everything else carrying on as normal, plus the Albion on top. I mean, this is the whole thing. My life outside of the Albion is enormous. I've always literally done about 100 gigs every year, and all over until recently. I've more or less retired from long haul flying now. But around that period, I was also touring Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the States, all over mainland Europe, in the middle of all of this stuff as well. It was just incredible. In answer to your question, I wanted BISA to carry on, the Brighton Independent Supporters Association to carry on into sort of 2011 or 2009, 10, 11. But I said to people, that's it for me. It wasn't a question of feeling lost. It was a huge, great sigh of relief that I didn't have all this extra stuff to do anymore, that we'd won, and that I could just go back to being a fan again, just doing what I started. I mean, I started getting involved in all this stuff because I love the Albion, and I could just go back to watching the Albion. I didn't have to do any more campaigning. I was pleased when they said to me, John, really sorry, but when we get the new stadium, you're not going to be PA announcer anymore, because we can't have any more Welsh language hip hop or Stockhausen or we can't have the Clash played every single week, and and we need stuff that younger people like. Although this is true, that was a bit unfair because I was playing a lot of stuff that younger people liked, but it still basically sounded like punk, ska, and reggae and dub. I get what's happening now.
So you took that on the chin. You didn't think that this is outrageous.
Oh no, I loved it because then then I could just get there because I cycled.
You could have 8 pints before the game
instead of 5.
That was it. I could go back. It's all that. I don't do that anymore.
Enjoyment aspect.
But I loved it. I absolutely loved being able to retire from all of that stuff, knowing that we'd won. It was the most wonderful feeling. All of us were exhausted. Some of us, of course, never made it. Obviously. Lord Bracknell and Sarah Watts, and my great friend Lord Roy Tudor, they didn't make it. We were still there. We were just going to enjoy every moment of it from then on, which is what we've done.
It was an incredible time. I mean, it was a wild time, wasn't it? And it was. That last season at the Goldstone Ground, for example, it was terrifying because you thought the club might die, but it was also one of the most uplifting years you could have in football because everybody was united in that ground, wasn't it? Everybody was fighting.
I was sure that we would survive because by that time we'd all realised just how many creative people. We've got an incredible fan base at Brighton. We're unlike any other club in that respect, which is why we've been able to help so many other clubs, which is why Tampere United exists now because of the inspiration we gave them. I many years ago I was touring around quite a bit. I went to Wrexham. We got a real big bond with Wrexham and what happened with them. I remember Oxford United. I was actually doing a meeting for Oxford United Independent Supporters Association the day that Kassam turned up to announce that he was going to be the new owner. And look how pear-shaped that all went. And there's Chester City. Oh crikey! There's loads. I mean, Mansfield, loads. Anyway,
it became a movement, didn't it? A national movement.
That was it.
Yeah.
But what we had that many of the others didn't have is such a wide, not just numbers, but such a wide variety of skills. I mean, summed up by the fact that 3 of the most obvious people involved. Well, myself, obviously a poet musician from the punk scene, Paul Samra, an accountant. And Ian Hart, an undertaker. You couldn't get 3 more different sorts of people. And
amigos.
There's absolutely no way that we would have met in any other form. That's what I love about football and about the Albion. I've spent my life in a left-wing punk rock ghetto, basically. Really, I mean, if I'm honest, it's a very big ghetto and it's lovely. But I tend to meet the same kinds of people. Who share my politics and my culture and music and everything. And in the Albion, I meet everybody from all walks of life, and I absolutely love that.
Do you still go to the games with those 2 guys?
Sorry? No. We never actually went to games because they were in the posh bits, and I'm a North Stander. I have never sat down to watch the Albion. Another funny story, which has never been told. Just as we were talking, obviously we need our own supporters bar. I said to Dick, and he said, yeah. And of course, Dick, by that time the control had passed. But we'd always said we want our own supporters bar, and it needs to be named after Dick Knight. Took a bit of pushing, but we got it. And then at a time the chairman the CEO was Ken Brown. And I said, now we want real ale in the ground. We've got to have real ale. And Ken Brown famously said to me at a meeting, he said to me, football fans don't drink real ale, John. So I went on North Stand Chat and I put on a message. Our CEO, Ken Brown, has just told me that football fans don't drink real ale. What do you think about this? Would you drink real ale if we had it in the ground? And I can still remember 68% of the people said yes, right? So then they went, all right, we'll give it a try. Well, anyway, to cut a long story short, about 3 years later, CAMRA, Campaign for Real Ale, were going to give me an award, not being, how shy and retiring I am, they were going to give me an award for having started, me and Roy Tudor, my great friend who's no longer with us, for having started this wonderful thing, which had meant that now, at that time, on a match day, the Amex was the biggest market for real ale anywhere in the country. CAMRA were great in the 70s, but there's a whole new world out there now. There's punk rock. There's a new punk sort of real ale fraternity out there now.
What did Ken Brown think that football fans do drink at football? Well, lager, presumably.
Sadly, I think yes. I think there is this stereotype, isn't there? And stereotypes happen for a reason, but things are changing, and the younger generation's now everywhere. I mean, the brewery at Spurs is an example. Beavertown, where the beer comes up from the bottom. I mean, it's brilliant. changing. No, I mean, so much has changed in football, and I'm really proud of what we did. I've accepted, more than accepted. In most ways, I welcome every aspect of the success and the wonderfulness and everything. It is very corporate. I accept the necessity for it to be how it is. I've talked to Paul Barber about this. Within the frankly the sea of sewage, which is modern football at the top level in many ways, we are surfing that sea to the very best of our ability. You know, I mean, it really is.
We've got to get into that point. Go on.
Well, I know that's the point. I mean, that's the point. I mean, we are doing it brilliantly. I mean, we have to play the game, but we're playing it better than everybody else. And people say to me, "Oh, but you never won." That's the latest one you get after we come from the bottom of the fourth division with no ground to finishing sixth in the Premier League. Oh, but you never won anything. I say, well, okay. I take my own personal example of this. I've earned my living doing what I love for 45 years. I never wanted to be a big celebrity and go on game shows and do adverts for undrinkable beer. I just wanted to do everything on my own terms, and that is what we've done, and that's what Brighton and Albion have done. We're doing it on our own terms, and I think we will win something soon. I do.
So widen the lens and let me know what you think about football in general.
What I think about football in general? Okay, I'm a huge fan of the game in general, and the grassroots of the game in particular. In my book, there's a big piece at the back about St. Pauli, who I have been to see since 1990. St. Pauli is the left-wing punk rock club in Hamburg, the anti-fascist club in Hamburg. I've been going there regularly since 1990. I have loads of friends that performed there many times, and there's a picture at the back which still makes me well up when I talk about it. It's not there; it's inside.
Oh.
In 2015, I was diagnosed. A bit further back. In 2015,
so it's nowhere near the back.
Just there. That one there. It's that one there. In 2015, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and I was supposed to be doing a festival in St. Pauli, and they put up a banner in the ground. It's not that one. It's that one there. It's that one there. If you look at it, it says Attila beat the beast. St. Pauli is with you, and they put that up in the Gegengerade in the ground. When they heard that I couldn't come because I had to have an operation, and that was a very difficult time. That was such an incredible inspiration to me. Wow. I mean, and in general, I mean, I love the Albion. The Albion's my team, but I have great affection for St. Pauli, and if I can't go to I organise my gigs. This is the other thing. Some of people know this already. I've organised my gigs around the fixtures for the last 45 years too, which it was really easy when we were completely rubbish, but now it's an absolute blooming nightmare, an absolute nightmare. You imagine what it's like, 6 weeks beforehand. So what I do is I get the gigs in the area. I like Liverpool away. Don't know when it's going to be yet. So I've got Birmingham on the Wednesday. I've got Birmingham Wednesday, then the nice place on the Wirral on Thursday, and Southport on the Friday. I'm waiting to find out when the game's going to be, and then I shall sort out Saturday and Sunday. And without being big-headed, I've got enough of a following and a very large social media platform on Facebook, which means that I can organise gigs people can organise gigs at quite short notice, and we can publicise it enough. But it's what I love about my love of football extends to the right at the very bottom too. My local club, Southwick Football Club, who once got to the first qualifying round, the first round proper of the FA Cup, who when we were growing up was one of the big clubs in non-league football in Sussex. Sadly,
didn't Ralph Rangnick play for them?
Yeah, that's where Ralph Rangnick came from. Yeah. Sadly, 2019, having been misrun for many years, when COVID happened, the keys were handed back. The club was going to cease to exist. We battled for 2 years to save the club. We won the battle to save my big club, but we lost the battle to save Southwick, and it's sadly gone out of existence now. It doesn't exist anymore. It will come back soon because the Russell Martin Foundation now have control over the ground at Old Barn Way, and there will be a Southwick club coming back. But the original Southwick club, founded in 1882, is gone. I go and watch Whitehall occasionally when the Albion aren't playing. I've got nothing else to do. I love the little ultras group they got there, the Whitehall Ultras. They're really funny. They're the best song. The referee's a referee, so they ban swearing and everything. It's brilliant. And I go and watch Worthing sometimes. And when I'm away touring, because you can't organise all the gigs around the football, because I get some really good gigs that I'm asked to do a long time in advance. So that means I have to miss a Brighton game, and I do sometimes. I get to about 3/4 of the games a season, and when I can't do that, I go and watch a team nearby. If I'm anywhere near Manchester and the Albion, and I can't go and see the Albion, I go to watch FC United of Manchester. I've been a sort of a solidarity member of them since the whole thing started, since the rebellion against the Glazers started. I love the game, and most importantly, I believe passionately that it should be owned by the fans, and that of course isn't happening. Although I always say Brighton is a fan-owned club. It's just that it's only one fan who owns it. But that is so different from just about everywhere else. And I do think that football clubs should be owned by people who are lifelong fans of the clubs and with a direct connection with the community. I think that's essential. It won't happen, but it's what I believe.
Do you know what, John? The world is full of armchair warriors, keyboard warriors who are strong in their opinions but don't get off the chair to go and do anything about it. You've just gone through about 10 battles there. I think almost all of which you've won. And I'm still. Have you clocked off? Are you still?
No, well, I'm still
looking for the next fight.
At the moment, I'm absolutely involved in the current political battles, basically to save this country from a horrible group of people that want to divide us. I believe in inclusivity. I believe in, I'm anti-racist. I'm anti-fascist. I passionately believe that we should be together. Part of our tradition at Brighton that I'm very proud of is that we have this wonderful fan base. It's not the same everywhere, but we're very proud of that. Equally, I'm not standing on a big high horse and saying I want to win people over. If people have these ideas, I don't want to fight them. Physically, I want to argue with them and discuss what's happening, because, in my opinion, the real problems in this country are not caused by the people that are the scapegoats at the moment. They're caused by the people that have got all the money, and the political parties that are representing the people with all the money, and that money belongs to us, and it needs to be shared out more equally.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. So I think that people should know, really, that if they buy this book, they'll be buying into the spirit of the club. So I hope they do buy it. The original spirit from 93.
The spirit of football.
The spirit of football as well. The spirit of football. Yeah, and I guess if I can say this, that the part of the foundational strength of the club and the way the club is, why it is the way it is because people like you, and you led the fight to save the club in the early 90s, and kind of created this imprint of solidarity and defiance.
That really moves me for you to say that, because that is exactly what I want this to do. There was a point when I had quite a lot of influence, when we had nobody apart from Dick, when I thought I'd like to turn us into England's St. Pauli, and I thought not everyone's going to agree with that. Some people don't share my politics, and I have no right to say that they have no place at the club. So there's absolutely no way that I want to do that. I want it to be inclusive, but I want it to have that independence, that fighting spirit, that underdog spirit, the if you like, the spirit of resistance. We resisted then, and we'll resist now. We haven't got anything to resist at the moment. It's absolutely fantastic.
How do you pass that on to the future generations that didn't live through what you have?
Well, I mean, one of the things...
And that understanding.
That's a brilliant question. When you asked me how did I feel lost when we'd won, no, I wanted the North Stand Collective, our young ultras group, to take on the mantle of Brighton Independent Supporters Association. They didn't feel they could do that. I totally respect that. They're from a different generation. They are. I mean, I know a lot of people a lot younger than me. There's a lot of people instinctively in our area who feel the same way, who understand the tradition of the club and take it forward. Equally, I'm not shoving anything down anyone's throats. It's up to the future generation to decide how we go. But shall we say that I am very confident with the number of people. I mean, it really moves me when I'm just wandering around at a game and somebody, a third of my age or less, comes up and says, you're John Attila, aren't you? I say, yeah, so thanks for what you did. And that's what I did it for. I didn't, I am loud. I know I'm loud and flamboyant and I'm out there doing all this stuff. But it was never about me. It was about the Albion, which is why when we'd won, I wanted to take a step back and I did. And now I said to the people like the BBC Radio Sussex and everything, I don't want to do this anymore now. I've had my time. Get other people involved. I think it's brilliant that people doing the podcasts now, and I do. If I'm invited onto their podcasts, I love it. I go on the Albion Roar quite often, and some of the others, Albion Obsessed and everything. I love doing that. But and I'm really honoured to do this. But I do feel now that it's the future generations. What you said there is brilliant, because the future generations, need. They don't need. It's up to them. But I would love it if future generations took on the spirit of what we created, and I think they have. I think everybody really does. Everybody who thinks really does realise where we've come from and where we are. And I will say one other thing about that, which really amuses me: the fickledom of modern fans. The fickledom, and I know this is an old bloke going back, the old days or whatever. The idea that people throw their toys out of the pram when we've lost a couple of games in the Premier League. And there's another poem I'd like to read, which everyone will love. I want to read you this poem now. And I wrote this last season because I knew what was going to happen. I knew. There's a song by the Skids called "The Saints Are Coming," and I knew when we played Southampton at home what was going to happen. "'Tis the day that glory beckoned. 3 more points will take us second. All the logic says we've got 'em. Saints are rotting at the bottom. Everything should be much calmer. Undefeated here at Farmer. Playing football, slick and pretty. Beat United, Spurs and City. One thought courses all day long though. What could possibly go wrong though? Top 6 now a routine dinner against the more flamboyant winner. Bottom 3 a massive hurdle. Flowing football starts to curdle. Packed defence of dogged doggers. Buses parked and crammed with cloggers. Pedro not one of their besties. So they'll kick him in the 0-0 versus throbbing gristle. Time wasting till final whistle. Sorry, Saints, for this rendition, based on fact, not superstition. Always been this way with Brighton. It's the lesser teams who frighten. I still marvel at our status as the big club plastics haters, fear and loathing in their bellies, sitting shouting at their tellies. So to sum it up precisely, 3 more points will do us nicely. And of course we drew 1-1. And we're very unlucky. We're very lucky not to lose. And then, of course, in the other game away, we beat them 4-0. We could have had 10. But that's Brighton. That's what we do. I don't know why, but it just seems to be the way we are. The better the team we play, the better we play.
Right, John, thank you so much. I know you want to mention the book quickly.
Yeah, I'll just say it should be on sale on the club shop. Currently negotiating that. It will be on sale via my Bandcamp page. Anybody that knows about the internet, Bandcamp is a music website. Attila the Stockbroker.bandcamp.com. I'll be selling it at the ground the next couple of home games after the final whistle, under my poem for Dick Knight in Dick's Bar in the North Stand, and as I say, hopefully it will be, and you could also get it in Finland, but we don't need to say that here. And it should be in a couple of bookshops soon, but at the moment I'm just sorting the first bits out. And anyone who wants one, just give us an email, and I'll also be posting about it on North Stand Chat and all the websites and everything as well.
There you have it. Go and get a copy.